What? Okay. See? Hold on. It's saying that it was removed from YouTube. So give me a second. What? Hold on. I just removed this destination. Hey everyone. I didn't even realize I was live for a minute. Anyway, season 3 and already some issues, but the devil is a liar. Welcome to Cultivating Conversations. I am your host, Stacey T. Cultivating Conversations is a podcast where we talk about life, love, the pursuit of happiness, everything in between. I'm your host. This is season 3. Episode 1, and I am so excited, even with the computer glitches. I am so excited. So for those who, well, I'll put it on YouTube after, but yeah, welcome to season 3. I'm excited about this season. I missed you all, but as you know, I take a hiatus so I could think about and just reflect on the season before and figure out what I'm going to do for this season. So I have some really exciting things coming up this season that I'm going to talk about at the end of the broadcast. So tonight we're kicking off season 1 with a phenomenal woman. So when we left at the end of season 2, we were still in COVID. And here we are in season 3, and we are still in COVID because COVID is really not, it's not going anywhere right now, right? So there's just been a lot of talks. There's just been a lot of things happening. We've seen the things, you know, the news and the rumors and the opinions on the news and especially on social media. So I wanted to kick off season 3 with the triumphs of COVID-19, because what we've been seeing for the last year and a half is the deaths, everything that is going on, everyone having an opinion, people are dying, funeral services and homegoing services, pictures of bodies in caskets and live streams. We've seen all of the deaths. We've seen all of the calamity of COVID-19, and we have not taken the time out to focus on and celebrate the triumphs, celebrate those who have come through COVID-19. And when I say come through, I don't mean having flu-like symptoms for 2 days like I did. I don't take for granted the fact that, yes, I did have COVID, and thank God, you know, I had it back in December and I was only sick for 2 days. I had flu-like symptoms, but there were people who were sick for months. And while there are a lot that fell asleep and transitioned and passed away, there are a lot who survived. And I mean survived. And one of those survivors I have on tonight. She is an overseer. She's a pastor. She's a businesswoman. She's a visionary. She is phenomenal. And I can say personally, because the Bible talks about trying the spirit by the spirit, I can say that she loves God for real. And she loves God. She loves God's people. She really loves God's people. She wants to see the best in everyone and who she is out in the public eye, because I don't know if many of you know, I'm going to present to some and introduce to others, but I don't know if many of you know this woman of God for months. I don't remember how many months, but for months, she had prayer, noonday prayer on Facebook Live every single day. I do not remember if it was on, I don't know if it was on YouTube, but I know it was on Facebook. Every single day she had prayer. And I believe that, the older generation used to say they're sending up timber. I believe that the prayers that she prayed, because of the heart that she has for God's people, are the prayers that carried her through her bout. So we're going to talk to her. So without further ado, because we got a lot to cover tonight, I'm going to introduce to some and present to others, Overseer Alicia or Alicia Collins.
It's Alicia. Hi.
It's Alicia.
Yes, hi everybody.
Alicia.
I don't know, I answer to it all. Long as they calling me for dinner, I'm coming.
Amen. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for gracing my platform with your presence. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and talk to me and talk to the viewers about all of the wonderful things you had and have going on. I'm so glad that I am speaking to you and not speaking about you.
Amen.
I'm glad that you are being seen and not viewed.
Yes.
And I'm just grateful that you live to tell your own story. So before you start, let me just let the people know, because this is a part of the testimony. I believe God, and it says, what does it say? It said Alicia Collins. And we can get into the t-shirts and all of that, but I want to start this conversation about with talking about COVID-19, and just tell me your thoughts, since you've been in the beginning through it and now you're out of it. I know you have a lot of different perspectives. So what are your thoughts at this point?
I feel like, first of all, let me say thank you, Minister Stacy, for even inviting me and considering me worthy enough to be on your platform. I truly thank God, and we give him all the glory. And I thank your fan base, I get your followers, for even tuning in on tonight, because tonight is very special. This is the first podcast that I decided to be up on, because I just love Minister Stacy. I just love her, and I will watch her on Instagram. Me and my daughter, every Friday night, we said, what is she saying now? And the conversations were so great. So I'm honored to be here tonight, and I'm very humbled. And back to your question, you were talking about what are my thoughts about COVID. First of all, COVID is something else, and I respect COVID. Let me just say that. COVID ain't no joke. It's a beast, but I'm a savage. That's what I learned. COVID is a beast, but I'm a savage. And I know that's something that I realized, that everybody's story isn't the same. And I want to speak to those people who are still grieving their losses, and those people who can't understand what's actually going on in the world. But if you are a believer in God, I'm telling you, you can come out of the fire as pure gold. I don't want to share too much of my story right now and change the narrative, but COVID, we have to respect what God is doing. And as I write all the time, COVID was sent to actually purify us. We were too busy. We were doing us. And I feel like God was using COVID to give us a timeout. Mm-hmm. So that we could kind of like refocus, recalibrate. That's what I started my prayers with. I would pray every Monday through Friday, wherever I was. I didn't care if I was going on to the hairdresser. If it was 12:30, I was getting on. It's prayer time. I didn't allow anything in my life to disrupt that, because it was just that important to recalibrate the people of God so that fear would not take over. And we were in a place of fear because we had no answers, and it was mass death and constant death. The images that we were seeing was unreal. It was like in a movie. The cities had become ghost towns. The nurses were overworked and underpaid, and that is it took a long time. It took weeks before the world could galvanize themselves together and come up with a plan. But the initiality of it, knowing that it started in New Rochelle, then it went to Manhattan, and then we became a hot spot, it was crazy. So everybody was just trying to figure out what it was first. Because I remember hearing the news report of something happening in China and Wuhan, China, and nobody paid attention. We're like, that's China, that's not going to happen here. Mm-hmm. And then it started spreading. And then they started using the word global pandemic. So that the thing that hit me was the fact that it hit every continent at the same time. I said, who could do that but God? I feel like God blew on the virus and put the wind behind it so it could go everywhere at the same time, because that was crazy. But go ahead. So that was my initial thought of COVID, that it was sent to actually slow us down and make us honor family again, make us pay attention to our kids, make us pay attention in ways that we've been ignoring God. The earth has been ignoring God, and there's always a time where the earth is supposed to rest. Every 7 years, the earth is supposed to rest. And so we're coming upon 21 is the 3 sevens. Back in 2020, when the COVID was crazy, I feel like God was making the world shut down so we can rest in 21. Go ahead.
No, absolutely. And I used to always say, when COVID first started, I feel like, and this is kind of getting into like the church piece, so I guess we'll just like vacillate back and forth. But I felt like, the church at large was big on, the world needs to come to Christ. The world needs to come to Christ. This is happening so that the world can fall on their knees and proclaim that Jesus Christ is Lord, as if the church is exempt from any type of learnings that we need to learn. Like, we ourselves, the key scripture that we would use is, if my people who are called by my name will seek my face, turn from their wicked ways. But I feel like when that scripture was used, we were forgetting that it said, if my people who are called by my name, not if my creation. So that scripture is talking more to us than it is the people who are not called by his name, because they haven't come under the umbrella of salvation, and we missed that. And as COVID kept coming and coming and coming, and it got bad, that's when we realized, like, oh, this is for everybody. We all need to look in the mirror.
I was gonna let me hop on with something that you said, that, oh, we need to save the world. I'm like, no, we need to save the church first. We need to get the church saved and then take care of our stuff, because the church is in crisis and our sickness is overflowing. And unfortunately, the things that we have perpetuated in the church, we have adopted from the world, and we have not stuck to the things that our forefathers have done to keep us intact. We've walked away from prayer. We walked away from fasting. We walked away from just doing the things that God commanded us to do that was going to help us during these difficult times. This is not the first time that plagues have come. We know that there was a plague in 1920. We know the Spanish flu was out. We know there was a plague in Europe. We know that the Israel, they went through 10 different plagues. At the end of the day, it was all about our obedience or lack thereof. And the people of God have misled, the church has misled people into thinking if you come to church, everything's going to be all right. Mm-hmm. But if you don't deal with people in the realm of deliverance, people will just go to church, pay their tithes, do a simple prayer, and say, sing their songs, but they won't be free. to go through the storm when the storm comes.
Right.
One of the things that I went to a conference a couple of weeks ago, and the conference host said that storm ain't got nothing to do with me, and she gave me another perspective to say, some of the things that we're dealing with don't have nothing to do with us, but when it does deal with us, are you prepared to deal with it? And most of the church is not. They're only used to going to church. They're not used to being impactful and affecting change. They're not.
Right. And do you hear feedback?
Yeah, I'm on your side.
On my side.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna keep going. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. So I think that in addition to everything that has happened with the church, it kind of shook up the foundation of church as we know it. So the way of doing church was no more. The comfort of come to us, come to us, come to my church, come to my service, come to my church. My service was no more because the church doors were closed. So, God took up our comfort to where it's like, now what are you going to do now that you don't have the comfort of the building, the comfort of the auxiliaries, the comfort of the routine of Sunday morning and the church meetings and the this and the that, the doctrines that you have created? Not that I have mandated, but the doctrines that you have created. What are you going to do with that? How does that stand up to what I actually mandated you to do as disciples? What are you going to do with that now? What do you think about the state of the church at large?
Well, I feel like the church need to be shook. And for too long, like you said, we've had having people come to our buildings and just to come to our buildings. We have to cross over to the church, to the people of God becoming the church instead of attending the church. Church is not just, it's the same thing with the Israelites. They had a building that was beautiful that Solomon built, and they cried when they saw the building in ruins. Mm-hmm. But they were more concerned about that edifice than they were concerned about their own soul. Too many times the church is, like I said, is in crisis. And in a pandemic, people had to figure it out in terms of if you don't pivot and if you don't make things, the word of God accessible, what was happening was people were listening to people that they had never listened to before. So people who were already doing virtual and or other local pastors had to figure it out. And I was telling people, get ready for Zoom. I was telling small church pastors, you got to make yourself accessible on all platforms. People used to come against Facebook and Instagram and in the church, don't pull out your phones. Well, now they need it. And so you can't talk about it, what you need. You can't come against what you need. So now they have to take back some of the words that they have been saying because now they're realizing that they cannot do church as usual. So the church had to graduate from the old school and merge and kind of bridge to what the millennials have been saying all along. You got to provide something for everyone. And the problem with a church is that we stagnate in our growth and we become like still water. And when I say still water is no growth. And things die in still water. And when the church becomes still water, it stands a chance of vanishing, because The youth are not coming in because it's too old, and the older people are dying. So, what are you going to do to bridge the gap? Not the show. And so that's why people can come in from out of town and everybody's excited about them because our churches are not keeping up with what's actually happening. And so they see it as, listen, y'all are not moving with the times. You're kind of like still want to preach an hour. Come on, our attention span is only 15 minutes. I know that from teaching.
Right.
And people only listen to maybe 10, they will only retain 10% if they just listen. So you have to kind of add the words. And you had a generation that's sitting in front of computers and games. And so if they don't see no kind of flashing lights, come on, the church has some of the people who study millennials, they understand that they want to be entertained. That's why they pulled down the lights in certain churches and got a stage, and because people want to be entertained. They don't know the power of deliverance yet. And some people have used that to their advantage, and they've become mega churches. But for smaller churches who are still saying, well, that ain't God, you ain't saving nobody, stuck in your ways. And if you said we gotta go out into the world, then let me pause because I'm getting excited. What I've learned is that I am not created to have a mega church. I'm not. I'm too evangelistic. I'm strict on deliverance. And so when you are talking holiness all the time, more than likely your ministries are small, especially in deliverance. But if you say, come as you are, you can still be on the choir even though you're messing up, as long as our churches are full. And you don't deal with people's issues, you give them false hope. After being through what I've been called to tell the truth, so help me God. Because I realize you have to have a relationship with God. You cannot come through what I've come through playing with God. And the TVs are nice, the big names are nice, but I'd rather have somebody who's been with God versus somebody who pretends to be with God. And we're paying them thousands of dollars to come in and say, we have this person in concert, we have this person speak for us, but they're not even thinking about your soul more than they are thinking about their end game or their pockets or what they're going to get out of it, what platform they're going to be on. Mm-hmm. And I just learned that young people ain't going for it. That's why I listen to the young people in my church, because they're not going for it. I can still preach holiness and I can still teach, but at least I got them to where they'll listen, because I'm not trying to be stagnated in what I feel is right. I'm listening to the needs of the people. It's not about what I'm saying, it's what is God saying the people need. And then minister the medicine that is needed. The worst thing we can do is go into the hospital, which is the church, and be misdiagnosed and expect to be healed. It's impossible. Yeah. And a lot of times when we're in church and in ministries, we don't know everybody's sick. Everybody's pretending to be well. Even the nurses and the doctors are sick. If you ever watch a medical show, there are a lot of nurses and doctors on drugs because they have to keep up with the demand of the job. But I digress. You will never ask another patient, what's wrong with you? Can you read my x-ray? Can you tell me and diagnose my problem? You got to leave that for the experts. But too many times we want to ask our friends and people that don't even know our assignment or what God has called us to kind of tell us what our problem is.
Tell us what we want to hear.
Yeah. Well, and we already know that we out of order a lot of times. And the problems that we're in is because we don't want to obey God. So the church needs help. And the church cannot win the world. or the young people trying to be the world. The church cannot win the world until the church realizes it's bleeding. Uh, like they said, in an airplane, if you get in a crisis or the plane is going down, the oxygen mask will drop. And they tell you before you put it on anybody else, put it on yourself. And the church has to put its oxygen mask on before it can help anybody else.
That's good. That's good. So what I'm hearing, and I completely agree, I feel like the church has had a hard time finding the fine line between being progressive,
right,
and still keeping the attributes and what God mandates, and not realizing that you can do both.
Yeah.
Jesus did both. We serve a progressive God. From Genesis to Revelation, the way that God mapped out everything, there were dispensations, there were different times, there were different movements. What was done in the Old Testament wasn't done in the New Testament.
No.
That is evolving.
Yeah.
So he did, so we should. Doesn't mean that we are dumbing down the gospel. It doesn't mean that we are how do we call it? We are compromising. It just means that we have to, Jesus's method changed, but the message never changed.
Right. We got to change the method, not the message, because the people that are on the receivership end cannot hear thus saith the Lord. They can't hear that. You got to say, yo, that's lit. The word of God is lit. And then translate to he's the light unto your feet, a lamp unto your path. You gotta be able to flow in a way that they understand that it's not a whole different language. And that's the thing. We don't know the language of the people anymore. We're still trying to preach out of the King James Version when they're like, what are you talking about? So you have to know the language of the people. It's just like when they teach us, you have to know your student where they are. You cannot reach them if you're talking on a college level and they're still in third grade. Like, let's be real. Find out what the deficiencies are so you can bring them up to the level they need to be. And everybody needs an individual, they call it an IEP, individual education plan. Everybody in life needs to individually evaluate their purpose. So you need an IEP individually. Put that in the chat. Evaluate your purpose so that you can understand when you're going off and you're not really in the will of God. Because sometimes we make decisions based on life, based on the COVID, our fear, not our faith, and we don't always wait for God to tell us what is the purpose or what is the plan. And we make moves that are not in God. Evaluate your purpose. Individual, your purpose is not somebody else's purpose. Your assignment is not somebody else's assignment. What I might be able to go through, you might not be able to go through, but ask God to anoint you for your assignment. Because at the end of the day, only what you do for Christ will last. Only what you do, if you do your assignment, will last. And a lot of times I'm grateful that I'm alive, but there were times right before I went through this, I didn't want to pastor anymore. I'm going to let y'all on a little secret. I did not want to pastor anymore. I was done. I was heading to my 12th year, and I said, I'm done. I'm going to do my businesses. I'm going to do what I got to do. I'm going to sell my perfume, sell my candles. I'm going to sell whatever I can sell, and I'm going to make it the best I know how. But church, I'm not doing. because you know how the little boy said went viral, I'm tired of this church.
Yes.
Well, the pastor was, I was tired of this church because it seems like the more I poured, the more I became depleted. And the more I tried to, I was saying, y'all got to get this, y'all got to get this, because this is what's going to save you. And I'll stop right there and you can ask your question.
No, I want you to keep going.
So what I learned is that you can become so tired in church because they work you, but they don't even see if you're feeling okay, if you're going through in your marriage, or if you got a loved one that is sick. And we have to learn to discern where people are in the spirit realm and naturally. Sometimes people just hungry. They need groceries in their house.
Right.
They need cafe to get to work. It's not always spiritual. Some people, their pride would not allow them to ask for help. You got to discern that and be able to say, you know, I want to be a blessing to you so it doesn't mess up with their pride and they get the help that they need. You have to learn the language of the people. Put that in the chat, y'all. Put it down. Learn the language of whoever you're serving. Learn the language because when we were younger, they was talking a crazy language to me. I didn't understand nothing they was talking about. It's only now that I'm saved, like you said, sending up my temper. I'm like, oh. They used to say, we used to sing this song, there's a leak in the soul building and my soul has got to move. I didn't know that. They were talking about dying. They were talking about transition. I didn't know that. And so now, as I'm getting into it, I understand that, them old people were saying something. We got to be able to translate, because one thing that Jewish people are good at is giving the oral history of where they come from, so they know their story. They know that they're God's chosen people and they act like it. Our diaspora has not allowed us to know our story. So we have to struggle to learn bits and pieces of ourselves, and we're still fragmented by all the trauma that we have gone through, not just in America, but I believe our ancestors. We feel the pain of our ancestors. There's a place in the Atlantic Ocean, I think there, where there's nothing but bodies, and they got what they did was created monuments underneath in the sea, to pay homage to those that were lost through the transatlantic slave trade. But if we're fragmented in our spirits, we're fragmented in our minds, and little pieces of us are everywhere. How do we really become whole? It can't come from outside source. It has to come from within. And that's the job of the Holy Ghost. I teach my church that Adam had the Holy Ghost. And they look at me like I'm crazy, Minister Stacy. And I said, he did have the Holy Ghost. No, because I like to throw them off their game. They think they so smart and they anointed. And I tell them, I said, Adam had the Holy Ghost. I said, God blew into man's nostrils the breath of life, the ruach, the pneuma. Ain't God a spirit? Ain't he holy? So that means Adam had the Holy Ghost. But when Adam messed up, he took the Holy Ghost from him.
That's good.
And that's why we have to have the Holy Ghost come back to us again in Acts 21, because he can't allow sin to stay in a place and grieve the Holy Ghost. So he had to take him out, because Adam was already submitted to sin by eating the apple that Eve gave him. And sometimes we don't even realize that the reason why we operate from the flesh before the spirit is because we're still dealing with the apple. That's another time of teaching. Go ahead.
So I want to go back to what you mentioned about us being fragmented.
Yes.
and about our history.
Yes.
One of the things during COVID, we went from George Floyd, which is what opened up, and then we went into COVID, and there was a lot of discussion around who we are. And my take is that there's so many things that the church, the Black church, let me be clear, needs to unpack about who we are. And I am not okay with the fact that when you start talking about things, those transatlantic trade, our ancestors, that's like a buzzword for, well, that's my bloodline because they practice witchcraft. And like the stories and the things that have been told to us, and we run with it, and it's like, we do not know. Like those stories that you talked about, right? About leaky clothing and buildings and stuff. Those songs came from slaves.
Yes.
A lot of our version of Christianity comes from the slave field. And there are things that we still do to this day that are slave driven. Okay? It carried us to where we are now. But now that we have the technology, now they didn't have no concordance. They couldn't rightly divide the word of truth. They went on what they knew, just learning how to read for face value. But now we're here and we have the tools where we can learn.
Mm-hmm.
But it's easier, whether we want to admit it or not, it's easier for us for people to continue in error because it feels good than to unlearn the error and move in truth.
Yeah. I feel like technology has caused us to learn more, but we're stupid.
Absolutely.
Because you ever realize that now you don't know people's telephone numbers? You can't remember nothing. You got to put it in your phone. And our minds are made to work in a place where we're able to actually take information in, process it. Now, if we don't use our minds and read avidly, all we do is watch television. This is what we're pouring into us. So we're not able to gain, like our ancestors were the first astronomers. They was studying astrology. They still can't figure out the pyramids.
Right.
It's all mathematics. Mm-hmm. And they did all these things, and they tried to make us feel like we were nothing, to subject us and subdue us. And so we have to rise to our kingship and our queenship and allow that spirit of who we are to rise so that we don't hate on each other. They taught us how to hate each other. Years ago, I read the Willie Lynch letters. And in the letters, he teaches the white slave owners how to subdue us because we were strong people, and how to make us fear. And they rule by fear. And he told them, take the biggest buck that you have, embarrass them, do homosexual acts to them, string them up, whip them when the inch is life, and make everybody watch so that the fear will come again. And this will perpetuate itself for 400 years. The problem is now that we're doing that to ourselves. We're lynching ourselves. We're killing ourselves, whether it's by word of mouth or just the way we treat one another, or even actual murdering ourselves. I happened to watch when I got bored in the hospital. Right after I came home, I watched a series called Them.
Yes.
Now, I wasn't going to watch it, but I watched it. I had to watch the whole series, and it made so much sense. Things are perpetuated against us through curses, word curses, and we don't even realize that our parents have continued with the word curses. Our grandfathers, our people that were supposed to protect us, haven't necessarily protected us because they didn't know no better. And you have to go back and dig up every word curse that has come against you, so that you can be delivered from things that have been perpetuated through your bloodline, that you keep asking yourself, where did this come from? Why am I like this? And you don't even realize that was something that came through the line. Like David was such a voyeuristic person that and he was a warrior too, but he had problems. So his kids came against him. The house of Saul came against him. And so, even though if you don't get some things through deliverance and under control, you can never be the church. You can never be the example. We're just, a lot of us are just flickering lights. We go on and off. Not even by a switch. You ever seen a light bulb and it's about to go on so it flickers? That's what we are. Our lights are about to go out. And we don't even know that in our world, our bulbs need to be changed. So many of us are living vicariously through other people that watching these reality shows and want to be like these people and not even understand those people are a mess.
A hot mess.
I have famous people's telephone numbers as well as people that are not so famous. I treat everybody the same because what I learned is that the famous people with money are still crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, I'm dealing with crazy people. My goal here tonight is to, as we cultivate the conversation, is to help people understand and see that we need change and we need each other to change. We need to hold each other accountable to change, and not just in change in the church. No, start with you. Self-care, start with you. Start loving you. And I taught my church the eight derivatives of love, excuse me. And when it came to self-care, most of them did not have it. So how you going to love somebody else when you can't love you because you see yourself as your nose too big, your hair not long enough, your butt's not big enough. Whatever you think your insufficiencies are, you're insecure about your look, you're insecure about things, and you didn't have a daddy, or your mama put you up for in a foster care, or you've been molested, you've been raped, or you used to use drugs, you used to be a prostitute, whatever you were going through, and you're carrying the identity and the scars of things that has nothing to do with your identity. It's what the enemy is using to keep you from being who God called you to be. And so we have to get to a place where I got to say this: you got to go to ground zero and scrape the ashes off.
Mm.
Talk about the World Trade Center. It was covered in ash after the 9/11 event. Everything was covered in ash. For them to get that place cleaned up, they had to go through asbestos, ash, fire, smoke. You have to get down to the bare minimum of yourself and bare your soul to God and tell him, hey, I don't like this. I want to break generational curses. I don't want to accept what my parents accepted as okay. I know in your word I can have better. I can do better. So I want to be able to love myself and say the things that are going to edify instead of the things that have vilified me for so long. Too dark, too light, anything that's not of God. He said we're beautifully and wonderfully made, but somehow I had believed for many years, I'm 53 years old, that I was not beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a trick when you got to tell yourself you're beautiful when everybody around you tell you, oh, you should do this and you should do that. And then you have to find beauty from something. You got to find something to say to yourself so you can deal with what the world thinks is ugly. And if you believe them, you'll act out in ugliness because that's what you've been told. But once you begin to self love and tell yourself, I'm worth it, I'm beautiful, I'm God's child. Listen, God don't play about me.
Right.
And he's very careful for me. So I don't have to accept anything that the enemy. I remember in my first book, I wrote this that my grandfather said to me, you're going to be a whore just like your mother.
Wow.
And I found out in the research of my book that he not only said it to me, he said it to my older sister too. I wasn't doing anything for him to call me that. Now, my sister on the other hand, she's a little risky. Let's pray for her. But me, I was just, you're just like your mother. And when we say things like that, we attach an identity to our kids that is not fair. When you say to a child or a son, you just like your no good father, you are attaching a word curse to your child, and you don't even realize that you're supposed to speak well of him to break the generational curses that we say over, because words can be curses or blessings. I better stop talking. Go ahead, ask me the next question.
Look, I'm letting you flow because I think just we're talking, still talking about COVID, we're still talking about the church, you know, all of the distractions went away. We can't go on trips and do this and do that and do all of the things that we would do to prevent from dealing with us. So everybody's shut up in the house. You have nothing else to do. You cannot do anything else but to deal with yourself. And I understand that, you know, we're not perfect. We're always going to have things to go through and deal with until Jesus comes or rapture takes place. But coming out of COVID, or being in COVID still, I just couldn't understand why people are still like we haven't grasped that love piece. And I know, and that was the sobering reality for me. I just knew that after this, there should be absolutely no reason why we should be lying, backbiting, slandering, hating, dragging people, doing this, doing that, creating whatever, chasing position, just being surly and nasty and conniving, because literally life is a gift.
Mm-hmm.
But here we are.
I think COVID exposed the sickness that the world is in because we had to now deal with ourselves. And the reflection that we were actually projecting on the world that we were okay. Through COVID, you now see the mental things that people are thinking they're not okay. We're not okay. The church is not okay. We're trying to get back to it, but truth of the matter is we're all suffering. I'm not against anybody going to lay on a couch because I realize you cannot shout this away. You cannot pray this away. And when I was going through my battle, I say in the book, I prayed, but it didn't seem like it was doing me any good. Not only that, I was the one that prophesied that not one would be lost. So how am I in this predicament? And what I'm trying to say basically is that we live our lives based on what we think other people want from us instead of what does God want from us. It makes God angry to think that we consider other people over him. We're supposed to respect our leaders and respect the voice that God is using in the season. But there comes a time when you know him. You know, that's for the people that don't really know him. But when you know him, you got to obey God. And that's where people lack. Even churches are getting to a place, pastors have for years terrorized people that they should only hear from them. And they didn't teach people how to hear from God. So when we get in a COVID situation in the past, you can't hear a word from the pastor. You stuck now. He didn't teach you how to pray. They didn't teach you how to read the Bible. They didn't turn you how to discern the voice of God. They didn't teach you how to have the Holy Ghost. So what do you have to go on to fight the storm? So we got to look at this in a place where we got to say, you know what? We can't just do what we've been doing. We got to teach people how to live beyond the crisis.
And beyond the church.
Yeah, beyond the church. We're getting to the place where I have said so many times, listen, I told my church, I'm not always going to be here. My goal is to teach you how to live out there. And I'm called to, and I was trying to say this earlier, I'm actually called to build leaders, not just keep you in my church. I don't care about that. I'm called to make sure that when you hit the streets and you see a demon, you're able to deal with that.
Listen.
When you go someplace, you automatically know this is not the move. When you hear God, you know it's God speaking and not your voice, not your fear, not your neighbors. You know the voice of God. So that you're able to have the kind of conversations with God. And you're not just praying. You have to learn to be, like I said, naked before God, where God, I'm really feeling this way. I'm really afraid. And not be like, well, Father, in the name of Jesus. It sounds good, but he knows you. He knows you're scared. He knows that you're going through. So you got to be honest with God and with yourself and say, I don't know if I can handle it. I need help. And make sure that you go to help from the right people that can teach you. I remember giving my church books. I used to say, we're going to read Prayers That Rout Demons by Apostle John Eckhart. They had to read A Great Deliverance, Pigs in the Parlor. They had to read all these books because they needed to know that everything is a spirit. And if you're not able to deal with spirits, see, a lot of times we attack people when we should be attacking the spirit that is operating in the people. So that the people can be left intact, but the spirit can be demolished. And a lot of times people think because we don't know how to deal with the spirit or recognize the spirit, people think we're attacking them personally. If you don't operate in deliverance, you'll break somebody down and they'll never come back to church again because you didn't know how to deal with the spirit that they were working with. It all starts with love.
It all starts with love. All of
everything. Everything starts with love. When we recognize that people are that the enemy uses people to perpetuate his plan of negativity, God still loves those same murderers, drug dealers, drug addicts, prostitutes. He still loves them because he loves their soul. And we have to stop looking for perfect people in our churches and open our doors wide and do what he said, whosoever will, let them come. But don't just let them come to fill your seats, but have a plan of action for them to get better and they won't leave the church bitter. I'll say it again. Have a plan of action so people will become better and they won't leave the church bitter because you didn't know how to handle them.
And that goes into discipleship, which is a word that is a word that I learned in seminary.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that is the missing link in the church. We get you saved. How many people you got saved? How many people you got saved? How many people you got saved? Like how many people you brought to Christ? And I struggle. I used to struggle with this because I wasn't concerned about getting you saved. I was concerned about you being saved.
Yeah.
Fine line, but different.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not concerned about getting you saved because I can't save anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Some plant, some water. It is God that gives the increase.
Mm-hmm.
So if we have a conversation and you walk away and you don't accept Christ, I don't feel, what did I say? I didn't say right, that I'm not using the right scriptures. I sowed the seed.
Yeah.
They're going to remember. But when they do get saved now, what happens after that?
Yeah, I think that we have to, it's like segments. When you get a job, they don't just, even though you're qualified to they hired you, they liked your qualifications, they read your resume, but they still go through a training process. They still tell you still got to learn their language, the company's language. You gotta know what the company stands for. They give you a human resources book, tell you all your rights as an employee of the company, how many days you're gonna have off, how many sick days, whatever the plan is, what health care is provided to you. All of this comes in the beginning. I think we, like you said, we get people to the church, but we don't allow them to become the church. And sometimes the discipleship needs to shift a little bit on the focus of the humanistic part, because if you are not dealing with them as a human, how are you going to expect them to be all this spirit being? They've been walking in the flesh longer. They've been walking in the spirit, so they can't do nothing but walk in the spirit flesh. So you're going to expect certain things to happen because they're walking in until they let the Spirit of God come in and dwell in and be with them. And they learn how to invite the Holy Spirit in. They're going to always react in the flesh, and so a lot of times we want people to be great, but the truth of the matter is we all have walked in our flesh longer than we've been saved.
We want them to be great like this. Like
it doesn't work that way.
Our bishop used to say, if somebody gets saved at 40 years old, they got 39 years of hell.
Exactly.
That they have to get out of their system.
Unlearn. Yeah.
That they have to unlearn.
Purge.
Yes, and that's where they're not going to know it all, nor should they. So it is the seed.
So why does church penalize people when they do right, when they don't do right? That's why they go to these churches that will accept them doing whatever, because they try to get it right, but they don't accept them falling. And the Bible says a just man falleth 7 times. I don't care if you fall as long as you get back up. And that's what I tell people. I don't care if we all got stories in our lives that we don't want nobody to read. We all got chapters, books, whatever. At the end of the day, if you can walk down the road knowing that you love God, you love his people, you'll do anything the Lord tells you to do, you're obedient, because that's his love language. Obedience is God's love language. Guess what? You're winning the battle. You might have hiccups here and there, right? Because there's some people in church you want to slap. Y'all tell the truth. Go ahead and put that down in the comment section. There's some people in church you want to slap. Let's be honest. There's some people, if you wasn't saved, you would give them a few choice words. You thank God for salvation, because salvation saved them from you. Come on now.
And so
you was gonna get them at the parking lot, the bus stop. You was gonna get them. Thank God for salvation. But at the end of it all, we all have to recognize that people are just that, people. They're human doings. They're not human beings yet until they understand what it is to be.
Mm.
A lot of people are walking around. You could tell by their lives they'll walk around doing, but they're not being. They're not becoming. So we're Christians doing. We need to be Christians being.
That's good. I'm gonna throw this question out at you as we move on, because I think we get into the real good part.
Okay.
But there's just one question that I want to ask you. You know, when we're talking about leadership and you know, people not knowing how to hear from God and not knowing which direction to go in, vaccination versus unvaccinated, or the choice to be vaccinated versus the choice not to. Now, I'm not asking which one is right and which one is wrong. I want you to talk about the decision process and how we as believers, how that has been another added layer of point of contention of just something else to argue about. If you get the shot, you don't have faith. If you don't get the shot, you don't have faith.
Well, look at it like this. The shot is just like your donor card or your right to vote card. It has your choice on the card, but that's not information you share. You don't share if you're a donor. You don't share if you're Democratic. They tell us don't even talk about politics on the job because you'll be fighting to get fired. And it's the same thing. Being a COVID survivor, but before I got into anything, I took elderberry, sea moss. I wasn't trusting the vaccines. I did whatever came out across the world. They said try to do to protect myself, and it actually worked. I had whatever they told me to take. My kids told me to take. I took it, and then I went to Atlanta and I caught COVID. There is this thing where people are telling people not to do, and people are telling people to do. Be it unto you according to your faith. If you have the faith not to take the vaccine and you believe God is gonna help you, that is your choice. But remember the consequences of that. Somebody that you're engaging with may not have that faith and may not have that immune system to deal with you. So you might be infecting somebody else. On the other hand, you can take the shot and still get something and infect somebody else. So at the end of the day, be it unto you according to your faith. What is God saying to you about the vaccine? I remember my executive pastor I said to her, you know they're going to start making y'all take the shot. She said, I don't know, Pastor. I said, it's going to be required for everything, even to fly. And just as I said it's happening. Because it's like when Hitler would try to justify who's Jewish and who's not, they had to walk around with these armbands and they had to walk around with a card in Germany in order to separate the Jewish from, and he was instilling fear. At the end of the day, I was paying attention to the trajectory of the virus and what the government was going to do, because at the end of the day, they got to watch everybody and do everything. Be it unto your faith. If you have the faith, just remember, everybody you're around don't have that kind of faith. This is a personal choice. Don't make the choice for other people. Don't force them to make a choice. If they don't want to do it, they don't have to do it. But just remember, like so many of the Trump supporters, they are dying, and because they didn't take the shot. And they're now saying they wish they would have took the shot, and their shot family is saying they wish they would have taken the shot. See, you have to be prepared for that consequence. Because I was not taking the shot. My kids would not allow me to take the shot. And then I get COVID. And I'm out. Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
You just blessed my soul. Because that was my thought. Because the same God that is going to protect the one that doesn't take the shot is the same God that's going to protect the one that does.
Exactly.
Because he's God.
He's God.
We're not.
Exactly.
To be a subject matter expert, and it irritates me to the point where people are so, for lack of a word, adamant in being dogmatic in being right. It's almost like, so are you waiting for people who took the shot to get sick and die so that you can prove your point?
Yeah.
Are you waiting for people who didn't? It's morbid, and it's in the church. But if you have the faith to say, I trust the science, I trust that the prayer that I prayed for something to come about, and now here's this shot, and I trust God that I'm going to take it and live.
There's so many things that I understand the Black community's fear because of the Tuskegee men, and John Hopkins used to always take Black people to work on them until I forgot this woman was a breakthrough. Her cells was a breakthrough in cancer. So they used her DNA to fight cancer. And so science is, we had always been at risk when it came to science in the history books. If they were just giving it out to us, I would be concerned.
Because the Tuskegee Airmen, the basis that was used as to why the people refrain, that information wasn't even accurate. That wasn't a totally different situation. And that is the thing. We spew this information, we share this information. Everybody is a subject matter expert, and don't nobody know nothing. So, like, go to God.
I want you to go to God and ask God. I had to even, I was so overwhelmed with my situation. I did discuss it with my executive pastor. She told me what she was going to say, because as I told her, I said, this is going to be requirements for jobs. I see it coming. It's going to get crazy. And I didn't know what to take, or if I was going to take it, because I had just come through this bout, and I was like, I'm just glad to be alive. And I said, Lord, if whatever you want me to do, I'll do. And I just heard the voice of the Lord and did what I need to do. At the end of the day, what I'm believing God, my assignment is my assignment. So I have to do what's necessary for my assignment. Just like you got to do what's necessary for your assignment. You don't have to swim 1,000 every day, 100 laps every day, because you're not an Olympian swimmer. You don't have to run all the time because you're not a track star. You don't have to jump and do all that. You're not a triathlete. But if you're going to live this life, you need faith for whatever you do. It has nothing to do with who's right or who's wrong. Stop trying to be right and be righteous. Stop trying to judge people for whatever choice they make. If they make a choice based on their faith, be it unto them according to their faith, and they're protected, that's on them. But don't follow somebody and you don't have the faith to believe like them, and then you mad because something happened. Your uncle died or you got sick. No. Be it unto you according to your faith. Make the decision for yourself. Don't listen to nobody that can't walk this walk for you. So I'm saying that not even leadership can walk it out for you. I told my church I am not having church in a building because I don't want to. In the beginning, we didn't know what the pandemic was going to do. And I said, I ain't got time to have y'all come. I can't protect y'all on the bus and in the cars and all the people y'all have to encounter to get to church. So how am I going to keep y'all safe? Stay at home in your own house and we'll do Zoom. That was my solution to keep them safe because they didn't want to, they didn't want to, take the shot. We wasn't sure what we're going to do. So to keep them safe and to keep them from having the fear of traveling in different places, no, y'all stay home, turn on your computer. I'm anointed. I can preach on the computer. It's going to be all right.
Right.
At the same time, I never made a choice for them.
That's right.
I never said, y'all better get the shot. Y'all better do this. I would joke with them and say, y'all ain't got that shot yet. But I never made the decision for them. Some of them were exposed, but I had left the prophetic word in the house of the Lord before I went through my situation. I said, not one will be lost, and they lived that word.
And with that, let's get into it. Let's get into what happened to Overseer Alicia Collins that brought about the shirt and so many things that a lot of people don't know about, but they will learn about October the 9th. I'm just going to put that out there. But go ahead. Tell us, tell the people, well, tell them because I kind of know. But tell the people what happened. Life after death. Let's talk about it.
Well,
it's a book, so
yeah. Again, I have to say, I thank God. I see my son is on the line. I have to thank God for actually being alive. Why? As most people say, because this is still mind blowing to me. So let me just say to your listening audience first, I died twice. Okay, so let me digress. In December of 2020, I went to Atlanta and I came back and I was coughing a little bit. I was coughing a little bit before I went to Atlanta because I was doing a live and I was on my way to the airport and somebody said, are you coughing? What's going on? And I think it was Sister Sandy Sabeda that reminded me that during the live, as I usually do, no matter where I'm going, and I had to catch a flight to Atlanta, I was coughing. I didn't think nothing of it. I'm be okay. And I protected myself. When I came back, I was diagnosed with COVID-19 maybe 9 days after I came back. Within 4 days of being diagnosed, I was in the hospital. 5 days from that time, I was on a ventilator. And so my church, my bishop, everybody's praying and they're thinking that, all we got to do is pray. In the beginning, it's challenging because I gave them instructions right before they put me on the ventilator. I said, this person takes care of Adia, which is my daughter. This person takes care of my affairs. And this has to be done in the church. And this, y'all run the church like this and let different people minister. I gave instructions as if I was going away and didn't know when I was coming back. So I'm on the ventilator, of course. I don't know what's going on. And so I miss Christmas. I miss New Year's. On January 3rd, I died for about 15 minutes. And they bring me back and they say, I'm so hyper. I'm trying to talk over them and they have to put me in a medically induced coma to calm me down. 6 days later, I die again for 3 to 5 minutes. And at this time, they're telling my daughter, you might as well pull the plug. She's going to be a vegetable. There's not going to be a quality of life because I had died over the limit a person could die and kind of retrieve their memory and everything. So scientifically, if you die over 7 minutes, you're a vegetable. I died 15 minutes the first time, 3 to 5 minutes the second time. So in total, about 20 minutes. And so I shouldn't be able to talk to you today or your audience or anybody and be able to make sense. I shouldn't even be able to talk, walk, or anything. And my journey is, I'm still in recovery. That's why I'm kind of sitting with the pillows because I'm still in recovery. And so after dying and everything, I thought that was the hard part, but that wasn't the hard part. The living became the hard part because I didn't feel anything when I had the heart attacks. I had pneumonia and double pneumonia. My lungs collapsed 3 times. I had to have a feeding tube. About 13 different things happened to me. My kidneys failed. They were just waiting for me to die. Pretty much. Hold on 1 second. My battery's going low. Take me off the camera for just a second. Take me off the screen for just a second.
Okay, so we're going to have a commercial break. How about that? So I was putting in the chat that if anyone has any questions, put them in the chat. Okay, this is going to be, interactive. This is a great conversation. Thank y'all for tuning in. I know that it's been choppy and it doesn't seem like there's feedback now, but I know that was an enemy because he's been doing what he's doing, but he is a liar. I almost went offline to come back on, but I said, no, I'm going to let God be God and I'm going to keep the woman of God talking because really tonight, it's not even about me. I want you all to hear what she has to say. And I want you to hear her testimony. So I think she's ready. I think she's ready to come back. All right. So this concludes the commercial break. And now we'll get back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Welcome back. I'm glad to be back. Well, I had lost power for a second. I thought I was plugged up and I wasn't. So I apologize for that. But to continue my story, I went through something that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. That's why I said when I came on, I respect COVID. Because what COVID took me through, COVID tried to tear me up from the inside out. Everything was going down. And it was, as my story is being told by the people that were connected to me, like my son, my children, my daughter, they tell me what they had to do just to survive the trauma that I was going through. I was asleep. I fell asleep, basically. But they were going through mental, emotional, and spiritual trauma. When I laid down, that's when the church stood up because they had to band together to get through the moments and the reports and the fact that the plug could be pulled at any given moment or I can flatline again at any given moment because they said the more you flatline, the more you lose. So they were just basically waiting for me to die. And they left me there. I got bed sores. My left arm still doesn't work as well as it should because I could only move my legs. And I couldn't move my body because it was almost like my hips were paralyzed. So I couldn't move in the bed. I was uncomfortable all the time because, like I said, coming back to life was challenging. My skin was, anybody that's really had COVID for a long time, their skin burns. And so my skin was peeling as if I had been burnt. And what happened is you start seeing different things. And my mind was so strong that I didn't even know what they were talking about when they said, "Oh, you're a miracle." I said, "Miracle? What are they talking about?" And that's when I realized I couldn't talk. I couldn't audibly speak. So I'm trying to make these motions in my mouth because my mind is telling me I'm okay. But they're looking at me like, you supposed to be dead. And you over here trying to talk, trying to do all this stuff. And and I have like all this stuff going. My daughter's trying to direct the camera because I got it wrong. But it's just crazy because I'm like, what miracle are they talking about? I have no clue. The nurses, the doctor, they coming in, and apparently I died on the 9th. So the first time I died was the 3rd. Second time I died was the 9th. And so there, in between the 9th and the 29th, I have no neurological pulses, no brain waves, no nothing. On the 29th, this is what I feel happened. On the 29th, they said I responded. They told me to lift up my legs. I did. They told me to stick up my tongue. I did. They told me to stick up my hands, and I did. I responded to the commands. I believe the angels were with me and moving my body like a puppet because I remember none of that. None of it. I didn't start trying to talk or anything. I couldn't talk. What I realized at the end of my ordeal is that my church, which is a phenomenal empowered people in Christ, would get on the iPad and pray for me every single night over the iPad. I have pictures because not only was I in the hospital, my daughter was also in the hospital in ICU. She suffered for COVID at the same time we were side by side in the bed. She just got up faster than me because she's younger, and she got up on autopilot and didn't even realize that she still needed help. So the crazy thing is that both of us were at the point of being lost. After I had told the church that we're not gonna lose one. Don't worry about it. God said we're not gonna lose one. So you imagine how crazy I look as a pastor, and I'm the one that the enemy's trying to tear me up. On one side, he's trying to tear me up, and I don't get to put everything in the book because it would just be. That's why it's a trilogy, and just so I'm giving y'all the first part in the first book. But during my time while I was dying, I had died. I didn't die. I actually had conversations with God because my mind remembers everything I went through, and everything that I was supposed to not remember in life. So in my mind, I saw, I'll tell you what I saw, but it's not in the book yet. I saw lots of colors. Is that the first question people ask? What you see? A lot of colors. I asked for a particular person that died from COVID in May of 2020. I said, Overseer Robertson, are you in here? So I know it's dead because I was looking for somebody dead to come and get me. She came, but she couldn't pull me over. Then the voice of the Lord comes to me, and y'all get that in the book, in the second book, not this book. But I'm not going to tell y'all no more. Just know that I spoke to the Lord. I know his voice. And I had a real deep conversation. But after the Lord spoke to me, the devil came and tormented me. That's a whole nother book. That's a whole movie. And I just want to say, you better get right with God. You better get to a place that even if you die, God still hears you. That even if you are challenged in death, that God could still come to your rescue. because I asked him to send me back. I said, I'm not ready to send me back. I said, I was so concerned with the things of the world. And this is what my daughter says to me that makes me laugh. She said, if I was pop locking with the Lord, I would say, peace.
I'm good over here.
She said, I'm good. I'm with the Lord. But me, my mind was like, I got my niece to take care of. I got my daughter to take care of. What about Epic? What about everything? Lemonade? I got too much going on, Lord. I haven't died empty yet.
That's it.
I felt like I hadn't fulfilled my assignment. So how could I die? I got too much to do. He granted my request. He allowed me to come back. But when I came back, I had to fight to come back. I had to learn how to walk. I had to learn how to talk. I had to learn how to bathe myself again. And people would look at me as if like, why are you doing all of this? And expecting me not to do the things that I was doing, even to write the book. Why are you doing lemonade? How can I not do lemonade? How can I not tell people that there is a God and that I'm a miracle and that miracles do happen? So many people are so used to things bad happen. They're not used to a miracle. They're looking in the Bible for the miracle. You ain't got to look in the Bible. I am a miracle walking.
Talking.
And breathing, because that's the other thing. The enemy tries to challenge our breath. Oh my God. The Holy Spirit is God breathing on you. So he tries to challenge you in the natural and in the spirit realm so that you don't breathe what you're supposed to breathe. And I thank God that when I came home, my son could tell you I had pills, I had an oxygen tank, and I had to walk up 3 flights of stairs. But I was coming home. I went to rehab for 3.5 weeks. I was in the hospital from December 2020 until April 7th of 2021. And I spent like 87 days in the hospital. And I'm just grateful that I'm alive. I don't even get to talk about when I get mad about something because I'm still human and I don't like something. I say, I don't like that because I still have a slur in my speech and I still talk slow. I'm trying to get back to myself, but I want to be better than who I was, a better human. So when I get really upset, I realize that you're alive. Here's what blessed me. I went to a conference and I appreciate what the conference offered. But I was sitting somewhere I didn't want to be sit. This is one of the lessons God had to really deal with me. And I said, man, I paid VIP prices. I want to sit in a VIP. I was sitting too far back and I'm slower than everybody else. So I'm trying to sit in a place where I can not be in everybody's way, but close enough to the stage to see what I got to see. Well, they huddle us into like the middle of the room. I don't like it. I'm too far back. And I'm saying, I don't want to be here. I didn't pay to be here. And God said, at least you're in the room. The tears start falling like crazy because at least I'm in the room because I realized you were dead, sister. This should have been they should be remembering you and said, oh, she wanted to go there, but you're here and you're in the room. I want to say to those of you that are watching us live, you're here and you're in the room. Appreciate the moments that you're not dead, that you're really not as broke as you think you are. You're just broken. Your mentality is broken. Your spirit is broken. And you have to find a way to come to God with that brokenness and say, God, I need your healing. I need gorilla glue in the spirit realm. Because gorilla glue in the natural can hold anything together. And when you're broken, you need spiritual gorilla glue to actually hold you together. Because everybody keeps telling you you're next, you're going to get a miracle, reach up and grab it. But what if you have to go through what you got to go through to get that miracle? I didn't know I was going to be the one that's going to be tested to say not one will be lost, for that word to really resonate with my church. I didn't know I was the one that the enemy said, "Oh yeah, you gonna say that word? I'm gonna get you." Yeah, I'm gonna prove that you are a prophet liar. And I thank God that He backed up the words that came out of my mouth and caused me to live beyond the lie that the enemy told. When I tell you that when the tormentors came for me, they tried to kill me 13 different times. And there's 13 different things that happened to me in the natural, and there were 13 different times they tried to kill me in the spirit realm. The chief tormentor said, "We done tried to kill her 13 times and nothing has happened. I guess we got to leave her alone." And that's when I came out of it. Sometimes we live our life not understanding this world is more spiritual than natural. But because we live in our natural state and we've lived in it longer than we've lived in the spirit, we don't recognize the spirit as at work. So we want to curse COVID when really we have to understand what God is trying to do concerning COVID instead of us trying to get back to our own nasty ways. Instead of us trying to do people out their money, instead of us just trying to be liars and backbiters and gossipers and not helping nobody because the church has been sick for too long. We've been sick for too long. We've been self-medicating ourselves and telling ourselves we're okay. And we put a band-aid on everything, not realizing that the infection is coming in and pus is everywhere. We need a healing. And this is kind of healing where we can't just say, "Oh," and the old folks used to give you something, a Tylenol, you'll be all right. But at the end of the day, we need more than a quick fix. We need a healing. We need a deliverance. We need to stop competing with one another. I need you. You need me. I respect what God is doing in your life. And I'm not trying to mimic you and do what you do because that's not my assignment. I'm only assigned to walk through the fires that God has assigned me to. Just like God was with Daniel in the lion's den, only Daniel was assigned to that. Do you notice that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego didn't get in the lion's den? So does that mean that they were doing what the king wanted them to do? Vice versa. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was in the fiery furnace, but not Daniel. Because their trial was their trial, and Daniel's was his.
God.
David was in the cave of Adullam where he could have cut Saul. He could have got Saul good, but he said, "I dare not touch the Lord's anointed," because that was his struggle to run from Saul. That was his testimony before he became king, to run from Saul. And a lot of times we're trying to live somebody else's testimony. Stop it. We overcome, that's what the word says, by the blood of the Lamb and the testimony of others. And I want to encourage you that, yes, you can live after death, but do you want to? Just live right now. Live for God now. I don't want nobody to have to go through, because when I think about it, I said, and you asked to come back to foolishness, because when I came back, y'all was still cutting up. The Black Lives Matter movement, the people that did the insurrection on the White House, the George Floyd. I said, Lord, they crazy. They ain't getting no better. I should have slept some more. Because the real matter of the fact is that I had to change so I can effect change in my world. My nucleus of change is going to affect everybody. This thing has become global because my church decided to pray, my leaders decided to pray. People around the world started to pray for me. People I don't even know. I was in the I had just come out of ICU, and one of the nurses that was my attending nurse said, "Do you remember me from ICU?" She came up to my room. I said, "No." She said, "Well, I took care of you and your daughter. Y'all was side by side in the ICU. And I'm not a Christian, but my girlfriend is a Christian, and she has a book club. So I tell her about your story and your daughter's story, and they have been praying for you consistently." Two nurses from Ecuador would come and pray over me every night. Even when I got out of ICU, they came to my floor and they would pray for me. And the people in the store were like, "Who are you?" And they said, "Don't worry about it." They would wash me up and they would pray for me and they would anoint me. There were people that were coming to pray in my ear and tell me you were going to make it. One of the girls that I remember distinctly because her voice and her laughter and the way she treated me, I remember her when I was still hallucinating. Her name was Jackie. She's one of the honorees for Lemonade. And she took care of me for 67 days in the hospital. There was a African nurse that came and prayed in my ear. He said, "You believe God, right?" And I said, slowly. And he said, he just prayed. There was a man that came in the spirit realm. His name is Pastor Victor Velasquez. And I know he's going to hear this. He said, "I came to pray for you and tell you you're going to make it." And never, he said, "My name is Victor Velasquez." He's a pastor. And I know I'm going to meet him. I know it sounds crazy, but it really happened. The other part was one of the doctors that was attending me. This is how I know my dream is true. He said, "Brimstone and fire, you gonna preach and sing again?" I never told nobody I was a pastor or a preacher or a singer or anything. This man was one of the main chief people coming after me in my hallucinations or my dreams. So that's how I know the devil is real. He ain't playing. He ain't playing. He's taking no prisoners. COVID is taking no prisoners. And you got to ask yourself, why is God allowing it? He's allowing it to get our attention. We have strayed too far away from his principles. And listen, when the children of Israel couldn't keep 10 laws together, he gave us two: love God and love his people. And we are failing. We're failing at loving each other because we don't love ourselves. Somebody told us that we were unlovable. That's a lie. Somebody told me I was unlovable, unlikable. I was worth nothing. And I'm one of the most valuable kingdom jewels that God has. You all are. That's why you're living in the bondage of your memories of what somebody told you about you that don't even know the God in you. You need to dismantle everything that does not represent what God told you and say that I'm not living up to that. I trust God for the change in my life. I know that He's going to help me come out. I know He's going to make sure that I'm all right. My family's going to, and you need to speak well of yourself, your family, even if they drunks right now. You don't know what God's going to do with them. Even if they're on crack right now, they don't have to always be crack. If you break the curse with your mouth, the answer is in your mouth. Start breaking curses with your mouth. Start start reversing the curse by saying what you want to see. Say it until you see it. And it will manifest itself. Our words are weighted. And I'm a prophet, and I know that when I say stuff, I got to be very careful because our words are weighted. And God pushes my word and makes sure that I see what I say. So when you start changing what you say, you will start seeing what you want. You start, and I'm not just talking about material things. Some of y'all need to say, "I am healed." I taught my church that in the Bible in Exodus, when Moses wanted to say, well, who shall I say sent me? He said, I am that I am. And I said, whenever you attach God's name to I am, something to I am, you're attaching God's name to it. And I said, when you say I am sick, you're attaching God's name to that. And he's not that. So you're lying. And the enemy is using you to lie against God. And so you can't do that. So we need to say what God says. I am healed. I am delivered. I am whole. And when we start saying those things, that's when our world changes. I don't want to preach.
I mean, let me just say, I'm going to wait until the end because for some reason, after you come off of the main stage, I don't hear the feedback.
Okay.
I'm gonna refrain from, but
the conversation has to be now. What must I do to be saved for real? Yeah. That's the question. What must I do to really live this life and walk out, whether I'm going to be in the lion's den, the fiery furnace, or like Haman tried to do to Mordecai on the gallows. I don't know what your fiery furnace is, but you have to have enough faith to go through it so that God can get the glory. That's all. This death was not unto, this thing was not, this sickness like Lazarus, not unto death, but for the glory of God could be revealed. Because some of y'all don't believe because you seen church people be tricky. Did I say that? You seen some tricky things in church. So this is to restore your faith in God, not the church. He's a healer. He's a deliverer. I know him as a healer before. I've come through cancer. I've experienced some things where I probably should have been dead long before anything, but I'm here and I'm coming to tell you, don't waste your hair time. I love The Color Purple. That's my favorite movie. Every time Adia sees it, my daughter, she changes the channel because she know I know all the words. The part that's most powerful to me is when Celie says, I may be black, I may be ugly, but dear God, I'm here. And so I say to you, I may have had some challenges. I may have not done everything right, but dear God, I'm here. Mm-hmm. And I want you to be able to be free in knowing that you're here and you're here on purpose. God has something for you to do, and it's not just to go to church. That sounds crazy coming from an overseer, right? No, I'd rather you stay home and be Holy Ghost filled and saved and doing the will of God than come to church and be miserable because you don't even know how to deal with people. You still don't like people. You gotta work on that part. Gotta work on the part that you learn how to love yourself, then it's easier to love other people because you got abundance of love and you got to practice it. I had to practice how to love people. And when I practice how to love myself, I grew stronger in loving other people and having grace and forgiveness because I understood that I was walking in grace and forgiveness. So I had to extend it to other people, and it became easier once I started practicing it. Yeah.
Okay, so whew, are y'all fed? Because I'm full. Lord, and I've heard we've had conversations, but I feel like every time you recant, it's just something else. And I'm like, Lord, Jesus, like God is real. And I know we say that as a cliche, but for real, Jesus is real, and so is the enemy, Satan.
That's what I want. He's waiting for us to slip up. He's waiting for slip up. And every time you make a declaration, he challenges it. So if any of you out there have said, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I believe this, the enemy immediately tries to snatch that word from you and try to snatch the faith that you have to believe that declaration. Keep saying it, keep believing it, no matter what happens. Because if he's coming after it, he knows that if you get what you've been saying, you are going to operate in a whole nother level of faith. But if he can snatch it from you and you go back to, oh, woe is me. I can't believe this happened to me. I can't believe they took the, and some of us are crying over stuff that don't even matter. Your soul matters. Some of the things that you're crying out, you should be glad that he's gone. You should be glad that she's gone. I'm talking too much, but you know what I'm saying.
You're right.
We have to focus. I can lose people. I can't lose the Holy Ghost. I can't lose God because it's an indication that somebody said that all the world is a stage, actors come in and off. And you're the main person, everybody else is supporting actors. And the scenes change and all this stuff happens. But at the end of the day, did you play your role well, or do they have to cast somebody else? Because when you don't obey God, God has to cast somebody else in that role.
Because he's going to have his will complete. And exactly. If it be you or if he has to find somebody else to do it.
And I want to live to do what he says and not just what people say. People of God, I have went through in church on a major level, on a private level. I've been blackballed. I have, and I'm not mad about it. It brought me here. And I want you to give up the anger that you have for people with stuff. At least you survived it. Some people didn't survive it. Their ministry did not survive. One scandal and they went down in flames. After all that I've been through, I survived it. And that's what I thank God for. I had to look at it differently. I can't sit in a seat of anger and say, oh, this person did this to me, and that person did. They did it because that's where they were. That's their weaknesses. And if I keep mentioning that, I'll make that my weakness. You ever notice that leaders that go through, they rule the same way? If you ever hear their testimony, if you find a leader that went through something before they became a leader and they don't get healed, they do the same thing.
Yeah, and it comes across the pulpit conversations. It keeps them from loving and really effectively operating in their gift, in their calling for the people. It spreads in every facet of your leadership role.
Yeah, and I had to learn how to not let what somebody did to me infect me.
Infect.
If I become infected, I will not be effective. And that will affect my assignment.
Sure will. It pays to be healed, and there's no healing that doesn't hurt. If a bone is knocked out of place, they got to knock it into place. If it's fractured, the bones got to come together. If there's a wound that has to be closed, it hurts to heal, but it's worth it.
It's worth it. And that's what I learned that also coming back from death, that I had to learn how to walk again after being bedridden for 3 months. Can you imagine what that first step was like? And I remember I couldn't talk, and they were visiting me on the iPad, and they would bring the iPad in my room, and I was trying to explain to them, and nobody could read my lips. Nobody could understand. I got so frustrated. I threw the pad across the the room, and they're like, "Oh God, Pastor's mad." I could hear them, but now I had to understand what the mute go through. I also lost my hearing in COVID in my right ear. So I have sympathy for the hard of hearing. I have sympathy for the mute. I had sympathy while I was in rehab for those who are having spinal injuries, and this young guy on a motorcycle and accident, and he doesn't have his left leg. And here I am. I survived death, but they're mad because they lost their limbs or they lost something that they had before. And patients with Alzheimer's and dementia and all this thing. And God allowed me to get my memory back, my ability to communicate and communicate effectively, even though I still have a little slur. I know what I'm saying. It makes sense.
We know what you're saying.
Yeah. And I remember like trying to express to them and just doing all this stuff. And I wasn't even supposed to be moving. I'm supposed to be a vegetable. I didn't realize that every progress was proving and defying the science in the hospital because they couldn't understand how I was able to do all of this after having been dead twice times the limit. The limit is 7 minutes. I was dead twice times that limit. And I had to go through the pain of recovery, which I'm still recovering, and even people trying to keep me from doing things because they don't want nothing to happen to me. So that's a pain in itself of having to depend on others to take care of you. Because you're saying to yourself, I'm used to being independent. I'm used to doing what I want, going where I want to go. And my kids don't want me to go nowhere. I remember when I was going to Tampa, they made arrangements to have somebody meet me in Tampa. And my cousin came to Tampa. The young lady, Loretta, was supposed to come with me, but she got stuck by Ida. So the first night I was by myself. But guess what? There were two girls that were there that took care of me when I was in the conference. Two young girls said, the young lady said, I know your hand is not moving. Let me pray for your hand. So she prayed for my hand and made me sit by her throughout the conference. So God has always covered me. He don't play about me. And I had to learn that. We are too valuable to throw away our stuff.
Mm.
We're so thirsty for influence and likes that we don't realize it's in the war room where we get the power. Had I not, I say this to everybody that asks me my story, had I not been praying since March 16th of 2020 up until the time of December 14th, those seeds germinated all that time. And that's why people were paying for me around the world. And that was my harvest because I prayed and planted those seeds. They prayed so I could get up. It was a harvest for me.
Right.
And I shudder right now to think, what if I had just let COVID take over my mind, take over the church? What if I didn't speak? What if I didn't pray? What if I didn't plant those seeds? And I told my church the other day, if you plant negative seeds, go back and dig it up because it's a harvest that you cannot handle. Please only plant the seeds for good harvest. Prayer, being kind, fasting. These are the seeds we got to plant. Getting into these arguments about vaccinations and not, it's a personal choice. We don't have time to argue about that. You better argue about whether your soul is right.
Listen.
That's what you need to get because everybody doesn't. When the rich man, and I'm going to say this, when the rich man had died, he walked over Lazarus. Lazarus was begging by by the door. The man saw him all the time, didn't give him nothing. The dogs was more comfort to him than the world. The rich man dies and he's in hell and wants to go back and tell his brothers. He said, no. And Lazarus is in the bosom of Abraham. You know why? Because what you don't get in this world, you would get in that world. But if he had treated Lazarus with a little bit of kindness, we're judging people based on their red bottoms and the cars they drive. And these people going to hell. I'm just telling you, go to hell if you get it right. I got to tell you, get it right. Give your red bottoms up and get you some sneakers and pray for people on the sidewalk. And do what God has called you to do. It's not the mic in your hand.
Right.
But it's the ministry in your life. Can you walk it out? Can you really walk it out? You want to be a minister? Minister means to serve. Can you really serve somebody you don't like? Stop saying that. You don't like them. You just don't like the spirit that they operate in.
Right.
If they get delivered from that spirit, they can become your best friend. We have cut off our blessings because we don't like people, instead of praying for that situation, that God will give you an opportunity to be a blessing and pray for them and minister them where they're hurting. Because most people are in church just sitting there hurting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The building looks good. They dress very nice. The hats are very nice, but they're going through hell. And I just come to tell you, I came back to tell you, you got to get it right. He is not playing. The time is winding up. The time is winding up. We got to get not just church together, ourselves together, so that when we represent church, it's more than just a good time. People's lives are changed. They are delivered and they're not still singing the same old songs. They're able to empower themselves. I was in a car with my mom, my adopted mom, and someone called her to report that she had to have chemo. And I said, wait a minute, let me pray, because if I let you say too many things, you might start agreeing with it. And I started praying, and she began to speak the word of the Lord and shifted the whole conversation. That's the other thing we got to learn how to do. Speak. When somebody comes to you with their problems, you got to come to them with the promises of God. Shift the problem to the promise, so they're able to speak the word of God and reverse the word curses. Because when somebody tells you you have this and it's negative, they're actually pronouncing a curse over you. You got to
mm-hmm.
You got to send it back. I don't care if it is a specialist. The doctor said there's nothing they could do for me. Pull the plug. My daughter loved me so much she wouldn't pull the plug. There's another joke that we have. I said, why? I said, you didn't want the insurance money? She said it wasn't enough. That's another joke we have.
Shout out to Adia.
She said she didn't want to live life without her mom. And I love my daughter for that. And every day I tell people, and I want to challenge you to do the same, stop having grudges, pick up the phone, call people, send a text, whether they reply or not, and just let them know you love them, you're praying for them. Because at the end of the day, we don't need to go to hell for one argument. Could you imagine going to hell because you had one argument or one disagreement with somebody, and you up there, you sing in the choir, you pay your tithe, you go to church, you only had one argument, but that argument caused that person do not believe God. So it's accounted against you. You get to heaven and you get to the place of judgment and you think that you're going in and then God has to bring it up before you. And you're like, but I gave in church. I supported my pastor. I bought this for the church. I bought new pews. I made sure they had nice microphones. God, what do I care about that? You damaged one of my children. See, we have to see everybody as His. Then we'll treat them better. No matter what shell people are in, they're His. They belong to Him.
Let us all stand.
I'm sorry.
No. We just literally hit the 2-hour mark. And I'm loving this. But I need you to get your rest and be replenished because you literally poured out. And of course I wanted you to, but then the other part is I got this fight going on with this audio, but I know who the source of that is. But I'm gonna keep going anyway.
It's gonna be well. It's gonna be well. All is well.
I already know where this is coming from, and God is and He's being glorified, and that's all that counts. So, lastly, tell us about the conference that's happening on October the 9th.
Last year we had the COVID was just getting started. But the Lord allowed me to have lemonade. Lemonade is where we celebrate cancer, domestic violence, and now COVID survivors, which we added last year before I even knew I was going to go through. And I heard the Lord say that next year is going to be the stand, lemonade stand. And I'm like, oh, Lord. Because every time He tells me something, it seems like we go through something crazy. One year was the big squeeze, and it was a trying year. The next year was the refreshing. So we didn't go through too much. It was the refreshing. But this year, the church had to stand while its pastor was laying down. So now that I'm able to stand on the Word of God, we are celebrating on October 9th from 10 to 2 at the J Suites Conference Center, 15 West 38th Street in the heart of New York City. And we are celebrating and honoring some survivors. And there's going to be an interview, much like the one we had tonight, with me and my daughter about what we went through in COVID. And the book is going to be released, Give Me 15. I had my 15 with God. 15 with God is nothing more than 900 seconds. But I had the time to understand my assignment better, and He gave me another chance to fulfill it. So I want you to go to the website, www. It's on the screen. The book is in pre-order until October 7th. After October 7th, you can no longer pre-order the book. It has to be in it's going to be a full price. So also, I want to announce that the event is the tickets are on sale for $99. I know some of y'all spent $200 on something. Listen, you got to do all of that. I'm going to feed you. I got great gifts. I got so much stuff for you to get. When I went to that lady conference, I spent $1,000 and all I got was a placard. I was mad about that. Then she put us on a fast food, so she didn't have a food budget. But I'm going to feed you. I got great gifts, great giveaways. I always do. And great vendors are coming. I got a perfume vendor. I got Dripped in Glory. I got so many things that you're going to be blessed by. But most importantly, you're going to come and be encouraged. If you're going through anything, if you lost anybody, anyone through COVID, if you're struggling in any way, this is where we come and encourage each other once a year and turn our lemons into lemonade. So we're going to have a great time. We have people coming from out of town that's going to sing us silly crazy, and they're going to do what they do. And I'm telling you, it's going to be off the chain. I haven't even decided if I'm going to let somebody speak because the first person could not do it. So now I don't know if I'm even going to just come. It's going to be amazing. Just come. That's all I can say.
The Lord is going to be there for sure.
Absolutely. And the book, I'm telling you, that's just the first of 3 books. But I'm telling you, the book is ridiculous. And I got the final edited version today, and I'm so proud of it. So proud of it because it showed the elevated mindset of first of all, who does a book after they come out of COVID and not even a year out of COVID? I started writing almost immediately after I came out the hospital. Maybe I started writing in May. I came out the hospital in April. Only God could do that. Only God.
The whole book, not a pamphlet.
No, not a pamphlet. This is a whole 190 something page book
with photos
and stuff that people put on Facebook that I didn't know about. I didn't even know I was loved. And I want to talk to this too, because somebody is walking around in depression that I call it out of you right now, the spirit of depression, because you're walking around thinking that nobody loves you and nobody likes you. And I'm here to tell you that God loves you and the devil is a liar. I was going to quit pastoring because I felt like I was ineffective. I did not know how effective my church was until I could not preach anymore and speak anymore, until I went through. Then they showed everything that I taught them. I was blocking them. Come on, leaders. Let the people become and come forth. That's a whole nother time. Because y'all lead to something else. But that's a whole nother time. You got to let people come forth. That same person you think is not worthy is probably the most powerful person because they're fasting, they're praying, they're living. But we like to promote who we like. Listen for God to tell you who to use. Stop doing this thing, but it's based on nepotism, and we're just promoting people because they cool with us. No, you better hear from God because people's lives are hanging in the balance. If I had not put things in place, put the right person in place, my church would not be standing after all of that. God told me to call this woman and tell her you are the executive pastor of the church. She didn't even want it. But she did so amazing. My church was intact. Nobody in my church was trying to develop a coup. They were just praying and waiting for me to get up. And here I am. I thank God I'm alive.
Overseer, I was going to ask you if you have any lasting comments, but you absolutely poured all the way out. And like I said to you behind the stage before we started, I'm so grateful. And I've said this to a couple of people who have gone through near-death situations. I'm so glad that you're being seen and not viewed. And we serve such a powerful God because he will not let his word fall to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't. In addition to the fact that you needed to complete the work, he needed to make sure that his word, because he's not a liar.
Mm-hmm.
So the word that he was bold enough to declare, he had no other choice but to honor him in you and send you back. There's so many powerful messages, but I'm going to say, I was going to wait, but in the name of Jesus, audio, just whatever. I want to shout out Epic. As a bystander, I mean, I've been told that I'm an honorary member and all of that. And,
yes, you are.
But as a bystander, because I wasn't close to, didn't have, the information. I was told what I needed to know so that I can do what the Lord would have me to do. I have never seen the true manifestation of leadership, because a true leader is if the body and the people can continue on when the leader is not there. Mm-hmm. But not only did they continue on, I mean, it was as if she at home with a cold, she gonna be all right. From the outside, this is what we're seeing. But we knew what was happening, but they just tunnel vision.
Yeah.
Tunnel vision. A level of faith. And we know there's so many churches, for whatever
reason. They lost their pastor.
They lost their pastor. The ministry went down. Only God knows what has happened behind closed doors. Who's trying to take the church and this and blah, 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 blah. But Epic, they
live up to their name.
Came through with the power and the anointing. I have to shout out Epic, because I have never, not that I really would, but I have never seen faith in action like that, where they, of course it was the Lord, but it was their prayers that literally resurrected you.
Yes. Yes.
So, shout out to Epic, every leader, every lay member, everyone, those of you who I know, I love you. I got my shirt. I got my shirt. I was in the flow. I was in the flow. Like, we're going to get these shirts and we going, and I'm like, well, Lord, you know what I'm trying to do with my finances. So I know I ain't finished to spend X amount of money for these t-shirts and she going to die. It is so.
Now it has to say Overseer Collins lives. So y'all gotta add an S to that.
Yeah, well, I can get my Sharpie, but
do what you gotta do. Do what you gotta do.
But thank you so much. Thank you so much for pouring out. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for being who you are. And I'm speaking from a personal. Thank you so much for being who you are.
I'm humble.
I know. Thank you for your life, your ministry, your anointing, thank you. And let me just say, because I'm gonna, this is not about idolizing. This is about giving honor where honor is due. Because like I said in the beginning, we don't do this often. We spend so much time trying to be the mouthpiece of God instead of the conduit of God. Have spun ourselves and lost the message and the purpose of this. We need more of this so that people can have hope. So thank you for coming straight out of the bowels of death.
Yeah.
And again, spinning yourself and putting yourself on display for his glory.
It's all about him. I'm just glad to be alive.
I know it.
He spanked me when I got to that conference and I was worried about where I was sitting in the room. He said, at least you're in the room. That's the thing. At least we're able to experience what we experience. Stop majoring on the minor.
Right.
And just be grateful that you're alive, because that's what keeps me going. Whenever I get disgruntled or upset, I know that's should have been buried. And I said, that's not me anymore. I'm alive. They said, you're not mad at so-so? I love them.
Don't have time.
I love them. I want the best for them. As if it were me. I want the best for everyone. I want everybody to live their fullest potential. I want you to go preach your best sermon, but also live your best life. Serve. Serve. Learn how to serve. Because if you learn how to serve, nobody will have a problem serving you.
Amen. To the men, on that note, I pray that God restores the virtue. I pray that you have sweet rest and sweet sleep tonight.
Oh.
I'm sure we'll talk. I'll see you in 3 weeks, I think it is.
Yes.
So yeah, thank you so much, Overseer. I'm gonna send you to the back so I can close. If you log off, it's fine. I'll text you tomorrow. We'll talk. But thank you so much for taking your time and extending.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. It was an honor and a pleasure. And be blessed, everybody.
Amen. Love you lots.
Love you lots.
Oh Lord, y'all, man, listen. Get your tickets for Lemonade. Come be in the building. If you are not in the tri-state area and you cannot travel for whatever reason, there is a virtual ticket price, $25. So you will be there virtually. You'll be seeing everything that we will be experiencing. It would just be virtual. If you can't do either, you can support the ministry by purchasing a t-shirt for $22, and the website is on the screen. I am absolutely full. I'm absolutely full. And I pray that you all received a lot. She said a lot. She unpacked a lot. Share this. Share it with somebody who needs to be encouraged. Share it with somebody who may have lost a loved one. Share it with somebody who has gone through and gotten through COVID, but they still may have still lingering underlying conditions and they're not understanding certain things. Share this with whomever. Again, y'all know me. I thank God for the numbers, but I'm not concerned about the numbers. I'm concerned about the hearts and the souls and hope. Okay. And with that said, my last announcement. So, Cultivating Conversations, Clubhouse edition. So I am, let me take this ticker off. I have a Clubhouse on, I have a house on Clubhouse, a room, Cultivating Conversations, Clubhouse edition, and I am starting a series called Successfully Single. Okay, it's going to be on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, starting October 6th, and it's going to be a 6-week series. Now, quickly, I will tell you what this is not. This series is not about how to get a man or a woman, how to be in a relationship, how to prepare for a relationship. It may be touched on, but that is not what it is solely about. This is about healing. This is about making singleness great. I'm not going to say making singleness great again, because singleness has never been great, because if it had been great, then there would be more conversation about it. There will be more people happily singled, and there will be less people trying to run and get married, and then it end up in a mess, in a shipwreck. Okay. So this is about us dealing with our past, dealing with who we are, self-love, as Overseer talked about, loving ourselves so that we can love correctly and in excellence, so that when the opportunity comes and we are presented to, or we find who God has deemed us to be with, that we don't mess it up. because we're messy, because we haven't dealt with us, because you cannot be a part of two if you are not a whole one. Okay, so October 6th, Wednesdays, Successfully Single series. I'm going to start something in October on Cultivating Conversations here, and then we can continue the conversation on Clubhouse. Why? Because Clubhouse, we can be interactive. You know, we can talk, do Bible study. We can do all of those things where I can hear from you rather than you just typing, and I want to hear from you. So be on the lookout for that. If you're not on Clubhouse, get on Clubhouse. If you're on Clubhouse, go in the search bar, look for Cultivating Conversations, click on the green button, and subscribe or add or whatever it's called on Clubhouse. Okay. The last thing, I don't know what happened with YouTube. Just another thing that took place. You know, the enemy just really tried to come for me, but it's all right because God was glorified and he is being glorified. I'm going to take this this video, this segment, this podcast, and I'm going to upload it on YouTube as soon as I can. So I know you all, a lot of you are on Facebook. If you are a YouTube person and you like being on YouTube, go to Cultivating Conversations on YouTube and click the subscription button. That way you will have options when technology is acting right. Okay, beloveds, I love you all. I pray that everyone has sweet rest. Please, 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 COVID is still out here, whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated. One thing is for sure, you should be wearing your mask. You should be washing your hands. You should be washing, period. Be careful. Let's love one another, okay? Let's love. Let's live well. Let's love well. And until next week, that's a wrap, people. So love you all and enjoy your weekend. Peace out.